Welcome to the Everyday Fi podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Combs, a personal finance junkie who learned from all of life's money mistakes. Come with me as I explore the incredible stories of those on the path to financial independence. Plus, I'll teach you how to start your own journey. Are you ready? Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Today we'll be talking to Scott. And hey Scott, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Scott, I'm from Seattle, but I grew up in New Jersey. I My family is mostly on the East Coast, but spread out. I have my dad's still in the Princeton area. My mom lives in Kirkland, Washington. One of my brothers lives in Boston. The other in South Florida. My aunt lives in Chicago. So all around. Um, I am a penetration tester. So that's offensive cybersecurity, ethical hacking. Been doing that my whole career for 6 years now, almost. And I really I love trying new things and improving. So I'm always doing activities, very, very busy. I keep track of my life in my calendar, so I always have new adventures planned. I like entertainment, concerts, comedy shows. I like traveling. I meet up with a lot of people around the world. Most recently, went to St. Louis to speak at a conference, and I met up with I think at least 10 to 15 Phi friends that I knew from elsewhere, and I like jumping around and seeing people. That's how I keep in touch. I play 3 instruments and I sing, and I love being outside and exercising. So lots of hobbies.
That's amazing. It sounds like you have a really fantastic life. Why don't we jump in and tell me, how did you find financial independence? How did you come to, know about the movement? Where did you first hear about it?
Sure. So it's a little blurry. I don't remember. So yeah, one of the reasons I use Google Calendar so much is because I forget even what I did yesterday. So I know, I'll tell you what I know and we can try to piece it together. So I like to do everything as well as possible, correctly, as close as possible to correct. And so when I graduated college, I got my first job and I started making money, and I needed to figure out where to put it. And I don't like making arbitrary decisions, so I started researching. I think that research brought me to the Choose 5 Facebook groups and to lots of other Facebook groups. And I started, I joined all of them, followed all of them, then started unfollowing one by one as they were all very repetitive and boring. But I was left with a few that I really liked. And then I started meeting up with people, making friends. I think I was part of the first group I was part of was Amberly Grant's Fin Talks, which is it still is a weekly meetup on Zoom of people to talk about personal finance topics. And I found that I really, really liked all the people on it, and that they had a lot of overlapping hobbies with mine. And so I started going mostly just to talk to the people. I learned some things, definitely. But primarily my goal was just to see my friends, and started meeting up in person, going to camp Phis and other Phi events, and just have moved on from there. I really appreciate the goal of Phi of freedom and being able to do what I want when I want. That's really important to me in life, to be able to focus on fun and my friends, and not have to worry about things like like money and food and stressful things. So removing stress, removing thought, and being able to focus on friendship. That's been my favorite thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thanks for sharing that. And I guess my biggest question is, which Facebook groups made the cut?
I like joining every group, and then you're just like being like I see them, still see posts, but I don't I don't want notifications. It's too much. So the place I first heard of Amberly's group was on, I think it was Singles in Pursuit of Financial Independence was a Facebook group.
Oh.
And I don't see too many posts on there anymore. I think I might have muted that too, but a lot of my friends were from that group, at least originally. But otherwise, mostly I focus on the groups where they talk about meetups. So the economy conference, there's a group for that. So I see some posts there. And then like I joined the Choose Fi St. Louis group, so I could join the Choose Fi meetup on Monday. But primarily, all of my focus is on in-person events.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love how you've kind of built this friendship circle out of the Fi community, and that you focus on seeing people in person and building those relationships. That seems really important to you. And I think a lot of people in our community would love to have more of that, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast. I mean, this isn't in person, but it's a more intimate look at who the members of our community are. And so I think, it's really important to do that and to cultivate those relationships, especially in a community of like-minded folks like ourselves. So, I would love to, create a commune one day, but
agreed. I was actually reading. I'm in a lot of book clubs. That's another thing I've really enjoyed. And one of the recent books was it was for one of my work book clubs. It was cultish, and it was about cults. And it was there were a lot of bad stories. But if you could have a cult that were not dangerous, I think I would love that. All my friends in one place. Ideally for me, not on like a campus, but in the middle of a city in a high rise where everybody I know is in that one building. That's my dream.
All right. Well, whenever you build that, just let us know and we'll do another episode talking about it.
Perfect.
No, but yeah, I definitely have always thought of the financial independence community as kind of a, soft cult, soft, safe cult. So yeah. And personal anecdote really quick, when I was still dating, I remember mentioning being in the financial independence community to somebody that I have been on several dates with. I think we have been dating for about a month, and he literally ghosted me the day after he
That's good. That's why you share yourself, right? Because then you don't have to waste any more time with people who aren't worth it.
And I remember saying that, and there's a financial independence group for women specifically. And of course, all of these, by the way, everybody, I'm going to link in the show notes to everything we're talking about here. But I asked about it in the community, and I was like, why did this happen? And they were like, well, maybe you shouldn't have told them you were in a cult as like a joke. So anyway, so what drew you to financial independence? What drew you to this kind of lifestyle and this kind of personal finance? Is there anything like in your background, like maybe your childhood or the way your parents handled money, that influenced you to follow this path?
I think so. It's hard to, look at it from outside my head, but in my head, everything in Fi seems like the logical, rational way to do it. I can't really, not doing it seems just wrong. So I don't know. I mean, I know I had already, like I mentioned, I'd already been doing the things before I learned that they were associated with Fi. I love I love the whole idea of, sharing information and sharing knowledge and helping other people. That's always been important to me, as well as I mentioned freedom before, so having the freedom to do what I want to do, the investing philosophy, index funds. My first ever personal finance resources were from Wealthfront, which is the main way I invest, and they're all about index funds. And I was one of the first, I think, one of the first robo-advisors. And I love robots in general and algorithms. So it's just everything I learned. It was very similar to my industry in cybersecurity, where everything I learned, it just made sense and it just fit with everything else I believed. So it wasn't any one thing that I can think of. It just seems to really fit with my personality and the things I love. They overlap a lot with the FI community.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'd like you to say more about that. Like, what specifically aligns with you and the FI community? Like, what parallels are you talking about specifically?
So most people are spend much more time than they need stressing about things like money, like travel, like work, everything that that if you that I think can be hacked. Like I firmly believe in removing mental strain from the things that you don't need to focus on, and then focusing on enjoyable things, and spreading community uh, and making friends. So I one of the things is travel as an intentional thing rather than a way to stop, get away from work. I really love my job and I travel because I love traveling too, but not because I dislike my job. I'm not trying to escape from anything. I'm going towards something intentionally. I want to spend time usually with friends. That's usually why I travel, is to see friends or to travel with friends or to discover new cultures or new foods. And so the just being intentional in all parts of life, I think, is the biggest thing that overlaps with the FI community. Also, there are even in the FI community, there are a lot of people that don't go out a lot. I know there's at least one group I'm in that's primarily a messenger group or Zoom meetups, and yet those people, I still meet them in person. I still like them a lot, and so I think it's where there's a lot of people in the world that would be at home but wouldn't want to make connections. So everybody values connections and sharing info, as I mentioned before. Uh, Also, yeah, and on that note, I guess just building other people up is something I love, and I think that's a big tenet of the FI community, is bringing everyone else along, because no one gets hurt by helping someone else succeed, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as you were speaking, I was writing down, you said two really amazing things. Removing mental strain, which I think is, you know, a lot of the time, I don't know what generation you're in, but I'm in the millennial generation.
I am
And
too.
yeah, and I feel like a lot of us have this creeping anxiety a lot of the time, like you said, about things like work and even traveling, which traveling is supposed to be enjoyable, but it can be very anxiety ridden because of the planning and the fact that something could go wrong and how much are you going to pay for it. And if you go over budget, and oh, what if, you're having, a type 2 type of travel experience with it. If you guys don't know what type 1 and type 2 and type 3 fun is, I will link it to an article in the show notes. But basically, type 2 is where you're not having fun in the moment, but it's fun to remember, but there's still that not having fun in the moment part. I went to Scotland with my boyfriend a year ago, almost exactly to the day, and our flight there got canceled. So we missed 2 days. And then the car we had to rent because we missed the 2 days was a Tesla. And it was awful because driving a Tesla in Scotland is not fun.
Yeah, sure.
But now I'm like laughing about it because it's funny to remember. So anyway, I agree with, like, pursuing financial independence to relieve some of that anxiety that I feel like society kind of puts on our generation, and even, a lot of the other generations as well, because of how much anxiety is around our jobs and having to be productive at all hours of the day. So I really resonated with that. And then another quote you said was going towards things intentionally. I that was beautifully said. And I don't think any more needs to be said about that. I think that just speaks for itself. But I wrote both those down, and I think one of those is going to get the episode title unless you say something else. So,
Cool.
um,
Thank you.
yeah. And So I want to know what your why of FI is. I know you said that to you, financial independence just seemed like the logical way of doing things, but do you want to retire early? Do you want to reach that side of financial independence? And if so, why do you want to do that?
So I'm still figuring that out. At this moment, I really love my job and I love my life. So I don't see any need to retire. I, as I mentioned before, I want to have freedom to do what I want. And so if at any point my job gets in the way of that, that would be the point where I would want to retire. But I really like I like being flexible at all times. So not being locked into anything, being able to try things and see if I like them. So one thing I've considered is like if I ever, taking like a year sabbatical or a few years or even 10 years and then going back and working again or doing something else. It's all available. So I want to have the flexibility to do that at any time. And that's why I'm pursuing FI primarily. I want to have the resources to be able to not have to worry about the things that most people have to worry about. And so I will have to see. I'll have to see how I feel and what comes up. But I don't see. I would only retire if I were doing it on purpose. I wouldn't just retire for the sake of retiring.
Yeah, that's very well said. Don't retire for the sake of retiring. And I don't know if you've heard of Jillian Johnsrud, but she talks about retiring often or doing little mini retirements and then going back to work. She actually has, I believe, 2 podcasts on it. And again, I will link those in the show notes. But yeah, she talks about that a lot. And I've resonated with that because I as well would love to take a sabbatical one day from work. And I feel like that would be a great way to reset for anybody who might be experiencing burnout. It sounds like you aren't because you love your job, but the people who might be experiencing burnout in the audience, like that is an option for you to take a sabbatical, especially if you are pursuing financial independence and you have that quote unquote FU money, which I like the freedom unlimited version of that rather than the middle finger version of that. It's a great way to reset and also reprioritize. If your job is making you burn out, then you can take that time to reassess what you need to do. And I love that is the reason why you are pursuing FI.
And I also try to apply the 5 principles to my job itself. So setting boundaries in my job, in my time, making sure I prioritize my health. I put a out of office block on my calendar every night to the dismay of my coworkers, because so that people don't schedule time over my gym time in the morning, and part of having my calendar full every night means that I can't be working because I have plans, and so that's also set up intentionally to not ever have to be stressed over work. So I think that's important as well, because I think by the time you get burned out at a job, it's hard. It's going to be exponentially harder to just take a sabbatical and feel better. So you're best off if you can manage it to take a sabbatical intentionally, not as a result, not because you have to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's something that in an ideal world would be really lovely if we could all intentionally take these sabbaticals and put those boundaries in place. And I just know that sometimes burnout just creeps up on you and you don't even know what's happening until it's there. And then, like you said, it's almost too late at that point, and you might even need more than a year to come back from it.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Do you want to learn how to set powerful goals and invest wisely? Have you been yearning to quit your 9-to-5? Then my workbook, Your Journey to Freedom, is for you. This workbook is your roadmap to financial success. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, it's designed to help you define your goals, create a plan, and take action towards building wealth. Inside, you'll find practical exercises and tools that help you identify your short, medium, and long-term financial goals, develop a personalized investment strategy tailored to these goals and your risk tolerance, and track your progress and stay accountable to your financial objectives. Plus, there's bonus content like a quiz to test what you've learned and a budget worksheet. With easy-to-follow instructions and insightful prompts, this workbook will empower you to make confident decisions and stay focused on your financial journey. Don't let another day go by without taking charge of your financial life. Invest in yourself and your future with the Your Journey to Freedom workbook. Order now and start turning your dreams into reality. Visit my website at alatemoneyinvesting.com/guides to get your copy today and start your journey to financial freedom.
So what I'd like to know is what your strategy for reaching financial independence is. Like, are you investing in the stock market? Do you have real estate investments? Do you have a side business that you're hoping to quit and do full time? Or is there something else?
I believe in minimum effort and maximum results. So I like automatic investing in the stock market, and so I use Wealth Fund I mentioned before. I put all my money that I can put that's not restricted by 401k or restricted by provider. I put in Wealth Fund, and I have them manage my whole portfolio with rebalancing, with investing. I automated my emergency fund, so as soon as my emergency fund goes over my cap, the money gets invested. So I don't really have to think about anything. If I don't want to, I don't have to look at my accounts. I have automatic rebalancing set on all my other accounts, my 401k, my HSA. So I choose to look at it because it's fun for me, but I don't need to, and I don't make any changes ever, unless there's a life change. My goals change or my risk profile changes. So that's my primary method. Aside from that, I think that one of the most important things, and potentially undervalued or under something that's not discussed enough, is the value of a network in FI. So having people, having resources you need before you need them, I think it's incredibly important. So I try to make investments in my network and in my friendships and in my family relationships so that when I need them, they're available. And so that is, I think, just as, if not more important than the money part, is having quality relationships.
Yeah, great. I have a couple questions about that. So first about Wealthfront. So how would you say the fee structure is for Wealthfront? Because I haven't used it myself because I thought it was higher fees because there's kind of that robo-advisor aspect to it. And so it's kind of buying and selling a little bit more than I would do on my own. But how have you found the fees?
So yeah, the fees are for any investment account that they have, it's 0.25% per year. And regarding trading more, I believe one of the best things about Wealthfront is their tax optimization, which is basically a math problem. All of taxes is best solved by math, and they really Wealthfront does a good job with making their algorithms math based, science based, which I really appreciate. And so generally most they sell at a loss for tax loss harvesting. So generally there's really not you're getting tax benefits, not losses by using Wealthfront. And then for non-taxable accounts, it's not relevant anyway. So it's worth it to me for never having to think about it. I could do it on my own, but there's no reason to. And it also helps me plan. It's just everything. I like their mission. I like their methods. I also the chief investment officer at Wealthfront is Burton Malkiel, who wrote one of my favorite books in finance, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. And he's just a great person, and he helped to create the index fund as well. Yeah, Jack Bogle. So I'm a big fan of him, and I think that anything that he he does or recommends is going to be in my best interest. So that's why I'm okay with the fees.
No, that's great. Thank you for that explanation. And it's always more, complicated than just the fee that you're paying, right? It sounds like the benefits you're getting, not just in the fact that you don't ever have to look at it, especially since you like to look at it anyway, but the actual tax optimization, which even though is, yes, just a math problem, but maybe a level of math that some of us might not be able to do on our own, you might be getting that feedback, right, through the tax savings that you're getting. So that's really great. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, and in the account, in the taxable accounts at least.
Yeah.
For the non-taxable, they still have fees, and so it's just lost money. But I can retire way earlier than I need to anyway, so I don't really. It's not like it's 1% or so.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the other question, you were talking about something important that people should do is build their network, because you might need something from your network. Do you have an example of a way that you benefited from the network that you built for yourself that you can share with us?
It's hard to identify one example. It's everything I do, every job I've had. First, we've already talked about Amberly and her group. So she has connected me with lots and lots of great people. Basically, everyone she's friends with, I became friends with because she's a great person. And so she was basically my intro into the entire FI community. And so if I had joined her group and I didn't enjoy the people, I wouldn't have been involved in FI. But I really loved the people, and I loved how she organized things, and it got me involved in the whole FI community. So not only have I met people, but I've learned many things I wouldn't have learned. So one example, I love optimization. We've talked a little bit about that. At Economy last year, my favorite talk was by Sean Mullaney, the FI tax guy. He talked about optimizing taxes for retirement, and of course, I'm not really near retirement, but there were lots of considerations that I hadn't even thought of that I really appreciated, as well as things that are different for people retiring early than for others. So diversification wise and all that. And then I saw him again at Camp FI Southwest last year, or maybe 2 years ago, and he brought up some other things that I hadn't considered, and regarding taxes and where to invest. And so I switched, I think, to all or primarily pre-tax for my 401k as a result of what he talked about. I think I made some other changes. So that's one example. But at work as well, there have been many, I guess a lot of the opportunities that I really care about are the people connections. And so all of my roles that I've gotten within my company have been from just connecting with people in the office, connecting with people in other offices when I travel. I've had a lot of opportunities like becoming. I'm able to plan security events for our office now as a result of networking here. I'm able to, in my last company, I became friends with my manager. We were able to, and the recruiter. And I was able to be the lead inclusion and diversity recruiting for our office when I was there. So there's been a lot of examples of the value of making friends and networking.
Yeah, those are all excellent. And I am also a huge Sean Mullaney fan because he has been kind of my background cheerleader for a Latte Money. He actually gave me like a discount code to go to FinCon, and just whenever I'm just like having a hiccup on Instagram, he's like, no, you can do this. You're so good. But so I love Sean. And I just heard an episode literally today while I was gardening, and I think it's one of the most recent ones on Choose FI with him and Brad Barrett talking, answering some user questions about tax optimization. And I always learn something new every time I listen to them. And yeah, he also in that episode mentioned that there was some podcast that he listened to, and he's like, I'm not going to name names, but the guy said,
all young people should only contribute to Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks forever. And he was like, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm one of those people who wants to do the Roth ladder. And so I'm all about them, like traditional accounts, balanced with taxable and maybe a Roth IRA as well. So yeah, I love him. And then you mentioned before we started recording that you were on a cruise. I think you said with Amberly and one other person, and you were on a podcast. Can you say more about that?
Sure.
Do you mind sharing about that?
Yeah, so I was on the FinTalks cruise, the inaugural, I guess, FinTalks cruise in January. FinTalks, I mentioned, is a weekly Tuesday Zoom meetup. But we have done historically a meetup in Longmont or in Denver area. But this year was the first time it was on a cruise ship, and it was really, really fun. During that cruise, actually one of the founding members of FinTalks is Mark Troutman, who has a podcast called Mark's Money Mind. I think he just restarted it, or he just started it, one or the other. I think restarted. And he and Amberly recorded a live session on the cruise, and so I was featured there. Although I haven't actually listened to it yet. I don't think I ever got notified. I'm not sure, but it was a lot of fun, and the whole cruise was a great time. And I already have signed up for next year.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. And FinTalks is definitely something that I'm going to be looking up when we stop recording, because it sounds like a lot of fun. And I love Colorado, so I would totally love to meet you guys in person. And yeah, I'll go onto Mark's, podcast and see if I can find your episode, and I'll link it in the show notes for sure. I actually there's so many, I think, just to side note for a second, almost every recording I've done, people have given so many resources, and I have had so many links to put into every single episode, and they're almost always different. I mean, some of the old guard are there, like Paula Pant and Brad Barrett and things like that, but then we've got some new things like this FinTalks and Mark's Money Mind. Like, I've never heard of these before, and I think this is going to be part of the value for our community, is hearing these new resources that we've never, maybe some of us have never heard of before. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next topic. What are your current struggles right now? And they don't have to be FI related if you don't want them to be, but if it is FI related, yeah, I'd love to, if you're willing to share.
So struggles are hard for me because I think it's a perspective thing where I look at everything as like I'm always improving. There's always stuff to work on, but nothing's ever a problem. Nothing's ever a problem unless I can't solve it, and everything is solvable or approachable, achievable. I'm currently working toward my financial goals as well, my networking goals as well. I am traveling a lot, making a lot of friends, and I'm reaching my goal of being on as many podcasts as possible. So that's great. Yeah, I really can't think of any specific thing that I'm struggling with.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it sounds like your struggle is struggles. You struggle to have struggles. So I like that. I think we should all aspire to that. And I really love your positive outlook on everything. I mean, that's so refreshing, and I applaud you for that. So then we're going to skip to your wins. I'm sure you have a lot of those. So can you share some of your wins? And again, FI or not FI related, whatever you want to share with us.
Sure. And just one funny story quickly related to struggles. Everyone's been talking for years about how everyone should have a therapist, right? And we get 12 free therapist sessions per year at my company. And so I've been trying to find a therapist, but I mentioned I like in-person stuff. So number one, after COVID, finding an in-person therapist is almost impossible. I found one, and I got rejected. She wants to move to a different type of therapy. I had been using Talkspace for a little bit. My biggest problem was, this is also what we talked about, was trying to figure out what my problem is. And my goal was to be like, hey, could you please tell me what's wrong with me and then help me fix it? But that wasn't really a thing anyone was able to tell me. They were like, "You tell us what your problem is," and I don't know. I think it's like a perspective thing, but it's just a funny related story because most people, I think, are able to come up with struggles very easily, but for me, it's one of the hardest.
That's interesting. And I have been in therapy for many years, and I will say that there are some therapists who are very good at kind of extracting what you may want to work on out of things that you might tell them without you having to know, because there are a lot of people who don't know themselves well enough to know what they need to work on. And I'm not saying that's who you are, but there are therapists who have that talent of being able to just kind of hone in on something just based on you telling them like a story about your childhood. That's usually.
I don't remember. As I mentioned, I forget everything. So my Google Calendar has nothing from my childhood, so I don't remember what I was doing. And my Google Maps, Google wasn't tracking me back then, so I don't know where I was. So that's also a problem.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, that's a struggle. So there you go. Your struggle is you're trying to work on yourself in therapy, but you find it hard to tell them what your struggles are. So that's such an interesting conundrum.
I know.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
It's very unique. So so tell us about your win.
I really loved my most recent trip was to Nashville and St. Louis. I was speaking at 2 different security conferences. And in St. Louis, I don't remember exactly where we organized this, but actually it might have been on the cruise ship. There were a few of my friends from the FI community that were on the FinTalks cruise. And I mentioned that I was going to be in St. Louis, where one of them lives, my friend Kristen. And I told her and we talked about it. And so she said that we would hang out when I'm there. And then I mentioned to a few other friends on the cruise. One of them lives in Kansas City, but she's from St. Louis. So she said, "Oh, I'll come visit." Some other people live elsewhere, and there were at least 5 or 6 people that drove in, I think, 4 to 4.5 hours just to hang out with me when I was there in St. Louis. We had a Choose Fi meetup on Monday. We went for a walk downtown on Tuesday and had dinner, I believe. Yes, definitely had dinner. So I really and most of the people actually that were there, even the people that hadn't come from far away, I had known from previous FI events. And just like it's a win because I feel like I'm finally feeling more of like an insider in the FI community, which is really nice. And I just appreciate making friends and keeping connections. And I love seeing people everywhere. And that people really, again, in FI, really value connections and friendships. And I love that. Aside from that, I love that I love speaking at conferences and teaching, sharing knowledge, meeting people. So outside of FI, I'm really happy. It is my 3rd conference I've been to this year for speaking engagement. And I love, I mentioned I enjoy my job. I got to host a dinner last night for some out-of-town security people who are doing some hardware hacking training in Seattle this week. And got to meet a lot of people I hadn't met that I'd been working with for a while. Aside from that, I spent a year or a year and a half trying to find a dance style that I enjoyed. And I finally found one recently. It turned out that I just needed to dance to music I liked. I didn't know that was possible. I thought all dance music was bad, but turns out that there is good music. It was just hard to find. I don't know how it was so difficult, but so I've been really enjoying dancing a lot, and as would be expected, I sing while I dance, and that's my favorite thing. That's a unique thing that I haven't heard anyone else do, but.
I want to know what kind of dancing and what kind of music before you go to your next win.
So I like pop music, pop and rock. And so West Coast swing dancing is what I've been doing. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I did 2 classes in Japan when I was there on vacation, one in Tokyo and one in Osaka. And and I've been going multiple times a week here in Seattle. There's a really nice dance community here. And actually, I think I had initially started dancing because of a Phi friend, Kim, who lives in Portland. So
that is so cool. Like, you're the cybersecurity ethical hacker who dances and sings. Like, that's just the coolest thing. Very unique personality. Amazing. So are there any other wins?
I had been looking for, so I grew up doing musical theater. I like singing, I mentioned. So that's my favorite part of theater. But I had been trying to find a community theater in Seattle to audition for. And it had been hard to find one that was in the city. When I moved here, I sold my car, and I love walking around, taking public transit. Most of the community theaters in Seattle are located outside of the city, as far as I have found. But of course, I didn't find West Coast Swing for a year and a half. So for all I know, there are more that are hidden. But based on my Googling, there are very few in the city itself. Right before I left for Japan, early April, I found a community theater that does shows and only in quotes perform as rehearsals, like I think 3 times a week, and ends only, again in quotes, by 10 p.m., which is still very late for me, but the most reasonable schedule that I found. So I'm looking forward to auditioning and being in some shows again, because I haven't done that since college and I miss it.
You're going to have to tell us when those shows are and where they are. So if there's any Phi folks in Seattle, they can come see you, or if they're recorded, you should share them with us.
Absolutely.
We would love to. And before I get to the next question, I want to know, what's your next Phi event that you're going to? Do you have one that you're going to next, or?
I do have several. Okay. I definitely have. I already booked economy for next year. Before that, I have Camp Phi Southeast in March. And before that, I have Camp Phi Southwest in October. Actually, and in between those, I have the Pintox Cruise in February. So those 4 are in my next year.
That's awesome. It's too bad you can't come to Camp Phi Mid-Atlantic, because that's where I'm going to be on Memorial Day doing live podcast.
Yeah, I heard that's a great one. I'm still, one problem for me is I get very hot very fast. And so I emailed Steven and asked him, hey, yeah, which are air conditioned, and those are the but actually some of my friends that I saw on Monday are going to Mid-Atlantic, I believe. So you'll see some of them.
Yeah, for sure. I went 2 years ago and it was so much fun, but yeah, it gets a little okay. So last question for you is, do you have a life hack, a recommendation, or a learning that you'd like to share with the community?
Yes, I have many. I think most of them I've already mentioned. I think everything can be distilled to one thing that's often talked about, and I mean, I don't think I'm going to convince anybody, but people often say that you have to do things you don't like to achieve your goals, and I just don't think so. I think you can. I think if you, maybe it's a perspective thing again, but everything you do should be fun in some way. You should value it. There should be nothing you do that is not valuable. Time is such a limited resource that it should be spent only on things you enjoy and you value. So whatever that is that you value doesn't have to match what someone else values. That's what you should focus on. So in job, in hobbies, in vacations, live it like you want to, not like someone else says you should want to.
I love that. Live like you want to, not like someone else wants you to. That might, I don't know. That's a good one too. You have some good quotes. Awesome. Okay. So before we leave, is there anything else you want to leave the community with, or anything else you'd like to say, or that we have?
So another thing that I don't think we talked about at all, another one of my hobbies is food, restaurants. I lead the Seattle Foodies meetup. I love, I think, again, intentional restaurant going. When I go to a restaurant, I want to see the chef's creativity through the food. So I don't just go to eat. I go for the art, right? And so a lot of people, as a result of me going to a lot of restaurants and hosting events, people mention often that I love all of it, and I think it would be fun. However, time is limited. So my goal is to have, by the time that a robot exists that can follow me around, carry my stuff around, I also want it to record me and video blog my life, I guess vlog my life, and also I can talk to it and it can create the content that it thinks should be published, because I don't have time to sit down, and I don't want to be sitting down. I want to be moving and just going with that.
Nice. Sounds like a job for AI.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Scott. I wish you luck in your next, 5 meetups, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And it was really great to meet you.
Thank you, Megan. It was great meeting you as well.
Thanks for listening to the Everyday 5 podcast. If you're loving the show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, check out the episode's podcast page on my website, alatemoneyinvesting.com/everyday5podcast. Don't worry, I'll put it in the show notes. You can listen to the episode and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 2, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story, you can fill out the form on my website's podcast page. You'll find it at the bottom of the episode list. Number 3, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share it with your friends and family. Also, feel free to leave a review. I love hearing from you. And number 4, if you want more of my content, follow me on Instagram at alatemoney, where I post daily insights on how to reach financial independence. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.